Greeting everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders of Hot podcast. Today I have a great guest for us, my good friend Anthony Cofrancesco. Anthony is a very interesting character, very successful despite his young age. In summary, he used to work after college at Amazon at the headquarters, and then he quit his job. He had an idea, joined his friend in Manila in the Philippines, built a business there, hired and built a team, scaled it, and then he sold the business. Now he's on to bigger and better things. He has a lot of great experience to tell us, and now is just back to traveling. Is in beautiful São Paulo, Brazil. Anthony, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here on Leaders with a Heart.
That's awesome, man. Thank you. So, for people that don't know you, who's Anthony? What's your story, man? Tell us. Start from wherever you want to start.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess first and foremost is, I'm just just a guy, just kind of going through life, figuring things out as I go along. I feel like I've always been a pretty adventurous person, wanting to try a lot of different things. From an early age, I kind of realized that I had some kind of natural inclination towards leaders. I don't really think towards leadership, rather. I don't think I really knew what leadership was until very, very recently, but started out with a bunch of extracurriculars in high school. Was like most kids, I grew up in a real small town in Maryland in the USA, went to college, thought I wanted to be a doctor,
Oh wow.
didn't really click there. Ended up, in a very corporate kind of career pathway towards corporate finance. Did a couple internships, but eventually caught the entrepreneurship bug. Kind of saw an alternate lifestyle, and really became obsessed with the concept of running a business, working with employees, growing teams. And so I ended up getting a job with Amazon, which kind of gave me the confidence to drop out of college because I had like a real job. Amazon didn't care so much if I would graduate. So I dropped out, worked for Amazon for about a year, really liked the job, really liked the company culture there, but got an opportunity after a little bit of time to quit my job at Amazon, move out to the Philippines and help grow and scale a creative company called Virtuous Graphics. So at the time, I've been a big risk taker. I decided I knew it was a crazy idea, but I knew I'd regret it if I didn't end up doing it. So I quit my job, moved to the Philippines, helped scale a company that we grew to more than 25 full-time employees. In the space, there was a lot of private equity in the space that was growing, and we had the opportunity to be acquired. So in 2019, late 2019, the business was acquired by a private equity fund. I helped with the transition, and now I'm helping to scale another company called PickFu. So that's the really condensed short version of who's Anthony Cofrancesco. And I guess too, what I would add on there is, and I guess kind of the point of what we're going to be talking about today is, I've always been really interested in not business from the financial side, and we'll actually get into, I guess, some of this today. We'll unpack it, but not just, hey, how can I make as much money as business, but how can I actually make an impact on other people's lives, specifically through the employees and the teams that I've helped to build.
That's beautiful. That's exactly what this is all about. So there's so much material that we can get on. But one thing I was always curious is how is it to actually work for Amazon? Because we've been involved with Amazon from a business side, but how is it to actually work there? I heard some crazy stories that they don't care about you, and but now so I would like to hear would like to hear your perspective from your own experience of working there.
Sure. So I think like many things in the world, if you read the news headlines and only read the news headlines, you're probably going to have a really negative view of Amazon. And I think in some cases, in some isolated scenarios, it was probably justified. But by and large, I think Amazon is a really smart company. I think they're very progressive. And I think by and large, the employees are actually very happy and they treat their employees very well. One thing I will tell you for certain is I've worked in a lot of corporate cultures in the United States. I've interviewed almost 70 times at pretty much every major company. I've gone through their whole hiring process. I've heard their whole spiel about, how they care about their associates or the employees, whatever. I don't think I've ever seen a spot where I've seen firsthand the ability for employees to advance as quickly in the company. And I mean, people starting off from base level employees working their way up to executive levels of management. And it wasn't just something that you'd see, oh, here's a one-off. It was very common, and they really did work with the employees to move up. The other thing that I'll say is I've never seen anyone as compensated as well as they were at Amazon. And I got to work hand in hand with a lot of the employees, sometimes in some interesting scenarios and difficult scenarios. And they would tell me straight up, like, I'm so appreciative to have this job. Before, I was working in other normal retail jobs, and this, in terms of income, in terms of advancement, radically changed my life. So I don't have anything negative to say about Amazon. I will say it's a fast-paced company culture. The job is not easy, but I also think, yeah, I won't go into much more detail there, but I think we're probably becoming a little bit sensitive in terms of what humans can do in terms of labor and work. If you look at how humans were working a while ago, I think everything they're doing is very reasonable, and they're being paid very well for it. And the 90% of employees really are very happy to have the job.
That's awesome. And do a lot of the Amazon employees that you interacted with also sell on Amazon or no?
No, they don't. But the cool thing is, Amazon actually encourages. I think the normal employees at the fulfillment center don't really care so much to get into it. I didn't know anyone else in my fulfillment center. There was 4,000 people working there. I didn't know anyone else who sold on FBA, but they do give, if you want it, they do give you a free seller account, so you don't have to pay your fees. And so they encourage you to, I double checked and asked my boss, like, is it okay if I'm selling? And he's like, oh, I didn't know you sold. And he's like, yeah, we'd love for you to do it, because then you understand more of kind of what goes on. So they're definitely encouraging of it, but I don't think very many people do sell on Amazon.
And the employees that do actually sell on Amazon, do they get access to special information or data or insider data, as we keep hearing in the sphere from people that, hey, some of the Amazon people have access to some quite interesting data that give them a hedge over other people. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I think depending on the team you are, you probably could. There's really good safeguards in place. So if you were giving yourself favors, I think the biggest thing that I always thought that I felt a little bit guilty of, and I never really acted on any of them, is if I walked around the floor. Part of my job in loss prevention was to do like investigations, and I would spend a lot of time on the floor, like looking at things. And I think the best thing is just, if you wanted to like go and pack or stow some items, you would just see all of these products that are flowing through just for product ideas and be like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like, just the most random things. As you know, people sell on Amazon.
Okay, so me and you, we know each other from the Amazon industry. So prior to working, well, when did you get so while you were working on, so the fact that you worked at Amazon, did that give you an extra incentive to be involved in the Amazon ecosystem, or that was something that you already had in mind to get involved eventually into the Amazon business as an entrepreneur yourself?
Yeah. So before I started my full time job, I did an internship in Tampa. Then I had a summer. I had a few months off, and then I started a full time job in the fall. And I had a few months before I was starting full time. And so a friend of mine from college, he was saying, hey, we're moving out to Cebu in the Philippines. Do you want to come and live with us over the summer? And while you're there, I can teach you how to start an Amazon business. And I was like, this is great, because once I start full time, I'm not going to have time to launch something. And I wanted a way to make money in addition to the Amazon job. And so I moved out there to the Philippines, really enjoyed it a lot, and got the rundown and really how to, what is an FBA business. And so prior to that, and actually I was really into the travel hacking stuff. I had like gone to global sources. I had gotten like a speaking gig, but I was talking about travel hacking for business owners. And so I had met that community. I went to another Amazon FBA conference in Florida, Startup Bros. And so I was kind of involved in that community. I'd met the people. I knew I really liked the people. And I was like, this is something that I knew I wanted to do. So that's kind of how, I guess, quitting my job at Amazon made a little bit more sense later down the road. Yeah.
So you said you went initially went for a summer adventure in the Philippines. So once you get there, you got a taste of the lifestyle and start your business. Uh, were you supposed to come back after this summer adventure to a full time job, or you said once you went there, it's okay, screw that, I'm staying here. I'm gonna build a business there.
No, I came back. I came back to start the full-time job,
Okay.
uh, and got a lot of cool experience. That was where I got a lot of my hiring experience as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, came back to Amazon, and that was kind of what was, I think, made it easier to leave, is I had had a taste of that life. I was working remote while I was in the Philippines, and so I was there for a year, and I kept looking on the internal job posting boards and everything. And I was like, when can I get back out to Asia? I wanted to I knew I wanted to do something international, because it was just so appealing to me to be in a completely different culture. And so, yeah, I went back, did the job for about a year. And then at the tail end of that year, got the offer to move back out, and I was like, yeah, this is something I want to do.
So when you first get to the Philippines, what was your first reaction coming from the US?
Yeah, it's definitely, I had been to Asia before. I had been to developing countries before, so it wasn't so much of a shocker for me. Actually, that's something that's really appealing. It's always kind of fun because when you go to a developing country, there's certain things that you just take for granted, and then those things are gone. And it's almost like when you go back to some place that speaks your language
Mhm.
and has everything you need. It's like you're playing a video game, but it's on like easy mode. It's just everything's easy now. Now I can go and accomplish anything I want. So I kind of like that. It's kind of the appeal. It wasn't a big shock. I had been to the Philippines briefly before. I'd been to other places in Asia, and so for me, I thought the Philippines was easier than most places in Asia because everyone speaks English.
Exactly.
It's just like the cultural difference is not so much as other places like Thailand. So I thought it was like, this is easy. This is like everything. And that's kind of why I fell in love with the Philippines too, because we went out with some friends. We went out with some of Eric's employees at the time, and we're like, and this is like, if you close your eyes, this is no different from the US. It's really kind of crazy.
Yeah, I had the same feeling too. So now, when you went there, did you so you went and you joined the existing company of your friend, or did you guys start together a business from scratch?
No, the business had already been started.
Okay.
Basically, the guy who later became my business partner, the guy who taught me how to sell on Amazon, he was an Amazon seller, and basically he went to Fiverr and Upwork to do his creative work, his photography and graphic design, and was finding a really hard challenge to get people that were good and that really understood Amazon. So he just hired some employees full time and kind of just started as a means to an end for himself. And kind of how it turned into the company is he had some friends that were also Amazon sellers and were like, hey, can I start, subcontracting out your employees to do work for my own listings? And so it started into that. And then I guess Megla somehow he went to the first global sources, and Megla was like, oh, you're a photographer, can you come and speak? And he didn't even have a company, so he put together like a website
That's
and like learned as much as he could, and then went and talked, and that's how he got his first set of clients, like first clients that weren't his friends. And so that business had been around for maybe a little over a year. And when I was in the Philippines, like a way that I made a little bit extra money that summer, aside from the remote job I had, is he was like, oh, I need you to hire a project manager, and I need you to hire like a couple, maybe like a photographer. And so he's like, I'll show you my hiring process, but can you do the legwork, and I'll pay you like $200 per employee? And I was like, heck yeah, I'll do it. So he taught me how to do the hiring process. And so I actually hired some of the initial employees of that company. But aside from that, so I had a good understanding of what the company did, and I hired like a few of the initial employees. Um, but I didn't play a role. And I was always really interested because the business was making money and I could see it growing. And I was like, wow, this would be, but I was always like, I was really interested in starting and helping businesses. And so I'm always one of those guys that has a million things going on. And I knew I couldn't really commit, because I was starting this full-time job at Amazon. Otherwise I would have said, I think we could really grow this business. But, that's not really what happened. So I helped a little bit. And so that's why when, like a year later, when he was like, hey, I really need help scaling this business, it was like I already knew there was a lot of potential, and I had seen what the Amazon thing was like. And so it made a lot of sense, a lot more sense than just quitting and going to help with a company I'd never heard of.
Sure. How did you guys hire and find your staff? Did you use any website or just personal contacts, or are there any agencies that helped you on the ground in the Philippines? So walk me through that. For example, let's say if I want to build my own team in the Philippines, so anyone interested in that, walk us through the process of that. What you guys did and what would you recommend?
Yeah, so the process that he taught me, and I still hold this to this day, I think this is probably the best way to do it. It's very time consuming, and you can probably automate certain parts of this to be much better now. But pretty much what he taught me is you want to cast as wide of a net as possible. So you want to get as many applicants to apply for the position as possible, with the expectation that you're going to filter a bunch out. And so this might seem redundant, but what we did, we were going through Online Jobs PH.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people that cycle through there, and there's a lot of job posts. And so what we did is made three pretty much identical job posts, but with slightly different titles and descriptions, three different versions of it, and posted it over a period of like over a week. So like on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, just so you're filtering all these people in, right? Just because if people don't see the job post, you want to be able to like everyone to see it, because good workers get snatched up. And
Mhm.
so cast as wide of a net as possible. And then early on, you want to have some kind of Easter egg in the job application. You want to ask some basic questions just so you can get like, it's like usually maybe a Google form, I think is what we routed them to. And you ask just some basic questions, and you're going to eliminate 90% of people just because they're putting in gibberish. They're not really paying attention to what the job asks. And then so from there, we reached out and we sent emails to we probably got 300 applicants for the job, like 100 per job post that we had. So about 300 in total. And then we filtered down from there to maybe about 30. And then from those 30, we had like some quick email conversations with just to ask some basic questions, and then maybe got on the phone. And the phone call, I was really just looking to see there's some core functions of the job we were looking for. And, from there, it was just, it was pretty clear. You could, I don't know what it is, but there's something you can just tell, like, especially for project managers, like you can tell, okay, do they have it? Are they organized? And so getting through the interview, you're really just seeing this, I'm asking situational questions about like, what have you done in the past? They were kind of walking us through that. And then at the end, you're always giving them a sample assignment. So something very simple, and about 4 hours of work that you're paying them for to see like almost directly what they'd be doing in the job. And then you're getting 2 or 3 people to go through that sample assignment and, making the decision off that.
Cool, awesome. Did you guys hire your team remotely in the Philippines, or did you actually set up a physical office with people coming to work at the office in Cebu?
Yeah. So the studio, we did have to have a photo studio. Everyone else was remote, like the designers and everything else was remote. So it started out as a studio. It was actually in Manila, in a city north of Manila, Quezon City.
Mhm.
And after that, we ended up, after I'd been there for a few months, this was once I really started working there, that studio became too small. So we got like a real big studio in Makati, which is in Metro Manila. More closer to the center of the city, and that was really nice. And so, but everyone else was remote. We try to have people come in part-time, and we'll talk about this a little bit today, but something I'm really passionate about is having a remote work environment and being able to have that work-life balance. I think it's really important because a big reason I actually left my job at Amazon, I had no qualms with the company culture, but my biggest issue is that I couldn't, it sounds silly to say, but like I couldn't live anywhere I wanted to in the world. And that was a really important thing for me to be able to go and do those things.
So, how was the structure? For example, if I want to open an office and a team in the Philippines, do I have to register a company in the Philippines, or can I do it with my American or Canadian LLC, or what's the best way to proceed? What did you guys do?
Well, I would say that if you don't have a need to physically be in the Philippines, then I wouldn't go through the process of setting up a company in the Philippines. Setting up first and foremost is like there's 2 different schools of thought on it, right? Because I know people there that set up companies and they're really, really like insistent that you set up companies, and they say that you have to do everything the correct way. The reality of it is the biggest export of the Philippines is BPO, is business process outsourcing, right? It is like the biggest export of the company. And so the vast majority of the workers there are working under the table. They're getting paid on PayPal. They're not actually declaring their taxes. And that's, the Philippine government is probably not going to get smart. I mean, they know that this is happening and they don't have the infrastructure to go and chase people down or chase down people violating. As well, too, there's a lot of people that are living in the Philippines. They're meeting with their employees and they don't have companies set up, right? And they're not doing it in a correct way. Now, regardless of if this is right or wrong, people being there on tourist visas and, conducting business, the Philippines doesn't really seem to care very much because you're spending money there. You're usually spending a lot of money there. You're giving jobs to people. And so the thing is, once you set up an actual corporation there, not only is it a long process, eventually my business partner and I did that. And it was like a crazy long process. It took like months to do. We had to hire a lawyer. It's not easy. It's not like other countries where you just like in the US, you can start a business in like just a few days, right? So in most countries in the world, you can start a business very easily. It might cost $500. It's not a convoluted process.
Mhm.
The thing is, the Philippines is very, very, they're very big on workers' rights. And so what I say is like, if you're a jerk, then do yourself a favor and go set up the business. If you're going to like screw with the employees and get into scenarios, like I know people personally that have been sued multiple times or they get to, and for valid reasons, like they're assholes to their employees. And then the employee has a lot of rights. So they can go into the Department of Labor. And I know people personally that have like they've gotten taken to court. They have to go and file these disputes with employees. But if you're going to treat your employees well and do the logical thing as a business owner and do the right thing, and like when you fire someone, don't just fire them for no reason. And when you fire someone, like give them some kind of severance, or like realize that they might not have extra money in the bank. Like just do the right thing as like another human being. Then go and start a business, pay them with PayPal, pay them a fair wage. Don't try to nickel and dime them. Realize that like you're getting labor much cheaper than you could get anywhere else in the world, and just respect that. Don't try to take advantage of it, you know?
I couldn't agree more with you. I couldn't agree more. That's for sure. What would you say were the biggest difference you noticed when it comes to dealing with Filipino workers versus, say, Western American workers?
You know, the biggest thing is that there's a whole difference in mindset mentality. Whereas, you know, for Western workers, it's very, very common to you'll have a lot of people in an organization, especially big organizations, that are just like everyone wants to be at the top. They want to be the best employee. Whereas I think Philippine culture is a bit different, where I think it's a little bit more complacent. There, you know, you in the US, you can like maybe dangle money or status in front of someone, and people will work overtime and they'll sell their soul to like do these things. Whereas Filipinos are like, oh, you know, they get to a point sometimes and they might say, okay, I'm good. And so it's actually, if you can find those people that are like, I really want to advance my career, I want to take it to the next level, those are the people you really want in your organization. And there's a role for the other people, but you have to realize that their motivators are quite different. And so they're actually just looking, once you realize this, you'll become a much better manager. The vast majority of people in the Philippines are actually just, in reality, they're not looking to be rich. They're really just looking to have a stable job that they know is not going anywhere. They want enough money to provide for their family, because it's a very, very big thing, but they also want time to spend with their family. And so you could offer them double the amount of money, but if they didn't get to spend more time with their family, then it's not going to be something that they're probably interested in most cases.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a very heavy on family and relationships and all that, which is something that honestly I kind of miss. We don't have, unfortunately, that much here in Canada, and probably the same in the US. I relate more with the family approach, family oriented thing. So yeah, um, so you went there, you built a business. How long will it take you guys to build, to really get everything started? I mean, set up and really get going from the moment that you had the idea to, okay, this is the idea. We both in the Philippines now. Let's build this thing. How long did that thing uh, uh, take?
Yeah. So the business was started before I got there. I would say in order to set up the business, the cool thing about a service business is it's a harder business to maintain over a product business, because once the product business is up and you're selling the products, like as long as you're doing everything right, like you're just selling the product, right? If people get the widget and they like it, you know, it's nothing more to handle after that. Once the point of sale is done, if you've got a good product, you don't have to worry. And so service-based businesses are really easy on to set up in the beginning. Like I think probably the business owner set up the business website, got the first clients within the first month, and it's pretty much already running profitably. And so the business had been running for about a year. When I got there, my whole goal and my directives were, how can you grow this as quick as possible? Maybe not as quick as possible, but how can you grow this to, they were big numbers, like huge amounts of monthly revenue. And so I saw that, okay, how we're going to do that, how we're going to build scale in a service organization is by expanding the size of the team and expanding the services that we offer. So at the time when I got there, we had graphic design and photography. We knew that we wanted to do everything for the Amazon listing. So we added on copywriting and video. And then we knew that in order to scale revenue, we're going to have to really drive up our average order value. So we're going to have to get in bigger orders. And so that was the whole goal. And how we were going to do that is going to be by expanding the size of the team. So when I first got there, I spent maybe the first few weeks, first month, I didn't make any changes, just really trying to meet every single employee, figure out exactly what they do, write out a big process map of how everything works, and then start figuring out, okay, how can we make things go faster, right? How can we lower the production time, and how can we increase the quality of work so that that's better? And so also, how can we bring on these new two departments? So I'd say it was like maybe not until, if I got there in May, it wasn't until October that we were in a really, really good position where we had hired the necessary team that we needed to have. We built out a new website. We had done a ton of work in terms of building standard operating procedures. And so that was probably about 6 months before we were ready for what we called Virtuous Graphics 2.0. And we recorded a little video and we reached out to all of our clients and we said, hey guys, we are back and we're better than ever. We've made all these changes. We've done all these things, and who's ready for Q4? And so that's when we kind of set things out. And then, we all clicked send on the email at the same time. And I remember, we were in Vietnam and we were saying, okay, let's see how we can grow this. And that's when the real growth started, is about 6 months after being there.
Okay. While managing this business and this team, what would you say was your biggest challenge there?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is definitely in regards to the employees. And it's really interesting. At the I said earlier, ever since I was a kid, I had heard about this term leadership and people talking about what leaders were, or what managers were, what business owners were. And I think there's something that's really sexy about this thought that you're a boss and you have these employees and things like that. But what I've learned more than anything is that, like, what a leader really isn't someone who goes and gives instructions and points to other people and say, hey, go and do this. What a leader really does is they take someone at their level, right? Whatever level that is. And I call it like the best form of brainwashing. Like, you really convince that person that, like, okay, you're at this level right now, but I'm personally going to help you get to this level up here. And right now you don't believe that this is possible. You really don't believe it. You think that this is the max that you're able to be at, but I'm going to help you. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to take a period of time. We're going to get there together. And then you're going to look back at this point 6 months from now, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was here saying that this is the max I thought I could do. And so the real challenge is, if you're building an organization, like a world-class organization, is you have to really be invested in the people you're working with. And you can't just say that. You have to really, really mean it, and you have to really do it. And you have to care about these people, because the same way that you have doubts and fears, these are real people too. And they're not just committed to just work. They have their personal life, they have their family life. And so you're kind of balancing all these things, working with the management team, working with the employees to get everyone to that upper level. And so that's, I think, the biggest challenge. And we were bootstrapped. We weren't, in a position where we had a bunch of access to capital. We were always operating within just the money that we took in as from the business. And so there was a lot of times, like, I think if you have more money, you could maybe go out and just make direct hires that were, you could just pay for that level of skill and quality. We weren't really at that level. We had to work within our bounds of profitability. And, we had to kind of do it all by hand.
I love the description you made of leadership. That's the best description ever. It's actually taking someone, just like you said, from where they are, instilling in them the belief that they could be somewhere higher, and not only making them believe, but get them there. Take them by the hand, lead them. That's the best, uh, you know, description of leadership. I love that. I love that. So while you were in the Philippines, another question that I really wanted to ask you is, especially when it comes to having a business partner. That's something I've been struggling with myself. Do you have any tips when it comes to actually finding and getting the right business partner?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate because my business partner Eric had been an entrepreneur since he was a kid, like just doing crazy stuff, reselling on eBay, and so he had a bunch of experience. In this case, I think the biggest tip that I give to people is, like, always, I think too often people look for a business partner, maybe that they're friends with or someone that they get along with. And it really you should be two very different people. And so I think the reason it worked well between myself and Eric is because we were two very, very different people. I was very outspoken and, charismatic. Not saying that he's not, but like he was much more reserved and much more methodical and very much a planner, where I was very much like, I wanted to go out and do everything right now. And so you kind of have to have this yin and yang, that balance. There's also, he had much more of not only the business experience, there was something unique that I was bringing to the team. I think that the thing that unique that I was bringing to the team was I was looking very aggressively at how can we grow. I had a lot of theoretical ideas for strategically how to grow the business, and he was a good sounding board for someone who had actually done things before. So I could bounce different ideas against him, and then really get an idea for how to refine that and build a good cohesive strategy. I would really think before you get into a business partner with anyone, like, what are they really bringing to the table? And it should be fundamentally different from things that you have. And then as well, it should be someone that you really do trust. You have some kind of rapport with. I really trusted Eric. I had worked on different businesses with him. Um, and we had a relationship over a period of time. I think that's the other thing people get wrong is they meet someone very quick and they're like, oh, I want to start a business. I want to be your business partner. And so even a business partner that I have now and another business that I work with, I didn't jump in and work with him right off the bat. We had known each other for almost a year. We had traded favors. He helped, you could kind of get an idea for what their work ethic is. And, that's really important as well, is just making sure you're on the same page. And there was actually a couple times, I'll be honest, where like Eric was an incredibly hard worker, much more disciplined than I was. And so potentially like there was almost times where it's like, I don't think I was putting in as much output as he was. And like, he was very gracious with me about, working with me there. And like, as I matured and developed as an individual, but like, that's the biggest thing, is just having incorrect expectations of like what people are going to do, the level of effort that's going to be put in, and making sure that you can trust the other person to be accountable and honest with that.
Awesome. So you were kind of like the voice and the face of the business, and he was more like the behind the scene kind of guy to. So am I right in that, or?
Yeah, well, and two, he was very focused in the product business, and
Mm.
so he really gave me Virtuous Graphics and said he spent very little time on it aside from operations and checking off different things. But he really gave it to me and said, "Okay, this is yours. Go make it happen." And so that was the other thing I think that he knew about me, is that I wasn't probably going to be in a position where I didn't quit my job at Amazon to have someone like, hey, you're going to be doing this and here's your hours. It wasn't going to work in that regard. And so I think he knew me very well from spending time together, that okay, the hands off kind of approach is going to be what's going to work best for Anthony. And I think that really allowed me to succeed, because if he would have really been like breathing down my neck all the time, like, well, has this happened on this exact date, it probably wouldn't have worked out. And so that's, again, like, you might want to take on another someone who's going to be a business partner, but like, is their style of work going to be something that you can actually manage, or that you're not going to clash on?
All right, cool. These are some awesome tips. Basically, finding the right business partner is almost like dating. You have to really get to know the person. You're not gonna propose to someone after just a couple of dates. Otherwise, it's gonna be a recipe for disaster. Same thing for business. Not only you have to trust the person, but also your personalities have to really match and get along. Because as you said, if you're the kind of guy that prefers to work independently, and the other person is more like micromanaging, of course, that's not gonna work. So that's really important. That's good. Um,
Well, the other thing I'll say really quick, and this is an important point, is like, don't be afraid. I think people want to jump into a business partner because they're like, oh, this is going to be some free work, or we can trade equity, or et cetera, et cetera. I think the first thing that most people should do, and that'll save them a lot of headache, is hire the person on as an employee first and say, hey, I'm open to giving you equity, but it's not going to happen right away. It's going to happen over a period of time through performance and different things. And because I've actually had even recent things I've worked on where a younger version of myself would have been like, oh, I want to offer this person to be my business partner. But then what I've done instead is I actually just work and I pay them directly. And then what I find after a period of time is like, this person either could be an actual business partner or couldn't be, but just start paying them first and then make them earn that title. That's what I had to do at Virtuous Graphics, is like, it wasn't given to me from the beginning. I didn't get equity from the beginning. I had to earn it
mhm.
through performances and time and things like that. So, started off as an employee, but became an owner of the company.
Okay. So tell us what are you up to nowadays? What business are you involved in now? Tell us more about what you're currently working on.
Yeah, sure. So right now I'm working with a company called PickFu. When we had our agency, we use PickFu heavily. PickFu is a way that we call it DIY market research. So you can get feedback on creative assets very quickly and easily. And so we use PickFu heavily at Virtuous Graphics. We used it for main image testing for Amazon, right? So like, could you come up with different versions of a main image, upload them into PickFu, get feedback, and help our clients make better decisions on to create better main images and things that are going to get images that get a higher click-through rate. And so when I was at Prosper Show in Vegas, it was so cool. This is what's so cool about the space is I met Justin and John, the founders, and we chatted for a bit. And I was like, this is the coolest product ever. I'd love to do a case study. And this is while I was still at Virtuous Graphics. And so they gave me like a handful of free credits to test. And we put together like a whole case study on how we use PickFu for our clients. And, did like went on their podcast, went on their blog, different things like that. And so after we sold the company, we sold the company. I helped with the transition. I took maybe like a month off. I made a little bit of money, but it's not like I made enough money never to work again. So I took like a month off, and then I was looking out, and I was like, all of the different jobs I could end up doing. I put together a list, and PickFu is at the highest part of that list because I thought this is the coolest tool. It
Mhm.
has huge applications, but not that many people have heard of it. And so I thought I could do a really good job. My unique skill set wasn't going to be with helping to build the tool or anything else other than like, I know what my skill set is I can go to conferences, I can spread the word about this product, I can bring big clients into the product, and I can build really cool case studies about the useful applications. Like my brain could just go off all day about how I could use PickFu. And so I approached the owners, and at the time they had a position open as a marketing assistant position. And so I applied for that. And then we pretty quickly found, okay, this isn't really going to be a good fit for you. And so I pitched it, and they're like, how do we bring on like larger LTV clients into the business? And so I said, look, the only way I know to do that, it's not from running Facebook ads, right? You go and meet these people, you go and you speak, you
So
create some really good content, and you give them as much expert information as you can, and you put together the best information, and then they'll come to you and say, hey, that's really great information, how do I do the same for my business? And I said, you got to build these relationships, and that's the only way I know how to do it. And I said, I really want to come on. I felt afterwards, after selling the business, that it had gone very quickly, and I didn't realize how fast it actually was. It was less than 2 years from when I got there. And I was like, in hindsight, I probably wouldn't have actually sold the business if I had to do it again. I would have held it for a bit longer. And I said, I'm looking for something to do for the next 5 years. I really think I can help build this company. And I said, I don't expect you guys to believe me right off the bat, but like, I want to be a part owner of this thing, and I don't expect it to happen overnight. I'm willing to work for it. Would you take me on? And I made a presentation to them, and then their CMO, and eventually they said yes. And then that's how it happened. I created my own kind of position. They're like, what do you want to be called? They sent me a few different descriptions. I looked it up, and I said, let's go with that. And so I've been working on that for the past year.
one point that is really awesome that I always emphasize on is doesn't matter what business you're on, whether you're e-commerce or coaching or consulting. At the end of the day, you're in a people's business. You're dealing with people. So just like you said, people love to do business with people they know, trust, love, and respect and relate to. And that's a key point that a lot of people are actually not even paying attention to because they think, oh, I need to sell this, I need to run those ads, I need to do this. No, yes, you do, but there's something even bigger that is the foundation of everything, which is the actual relationship. Yes, we're dealing online, but at the end of the day, you know, it's all about human to human, interaction. If they trust you, doesn't matter how many ads you run or how good your ad is, how much you spend on it. If they don't like you, it's not going to happen. But if you have this, you may not even need to run the ad, just like you said. That's so key. That's so beautiful. I love that, man. So, and another thing that I really like about, that's why I love attending those conferences. It's not about the what you learn. Sure, you learn a lot of good things, but it's actually the contacts you make, the people you meet. I've met some tremendous people in those conferences and made some great, friends, and some of them even become, business partners, for example. That's how I met
Yeah,
Riley.
and I'll tell you too. I mean, one of the best pieces of advice I ever gave, and I think he's okay with me sharing this, is a guy. I think you might have met him, or at least met him in Hong Kong. CJ Rosenbaum,
Oh yeah.
uh, Amazon seller's lawyer. And I remember I met him a few times, and we were at a conference in Tel Aviv in Israel. And I remember we were sitting down for lunch, and he was telling me and Eric, he was saying, he's like, the thing you need to understand is like, people are going to do business with you because of you, because of the two of you, because of your personality. And
Yes.
he's like, what I realized a long time ago is that there were all of these different lawyers in the Amazon space, but I saw other lawyers that were going to these conferences, they were giving these talks, they were building these relationships. And I thought, I could do the same thing. In fact, I could do it much better. And so he really like made it very clear. And you had a hunch deep down that the way to scale a service-based business was to go around and meet people. But he really made it clear, like, this is his pathway to how he scaled that business, is just going around and meeting these people and giving a lot more value than ever you were expecting. And that's where really were solidified it for me. And it was probably the best piece of advice I got because not only did it work at Virtuous Graphics, but then I saw it work there. And then I came over here to PickFu, and it was even easier with PickFu because PickFu had such a great reputation. And so, Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of going to these conferences is you get these things like these intuitions that you already have naturally, but they're confirmed by people who have been doing it much, much longer, and so helpful.
That reminds me of a tip that we'll always remember from Shark Tank, where Cuban, he said, when we see tons of businesses in front of us, but what we invest in is 10% the business, but 90% the person. If the
Yeah.
person, even if it's the best business in the world, if the person is lousy or doesn't give you the right confidence, we're not going to invest in it. So it's the same
Yep.
thing. It's all about the personal connection and the impact, the positive impact you make on that. So let's see. Okay. So what's your vision now with PickFu? What's your vision with this? How far do you
I
want
mean,
to take?
yeah, I mean, it's really simple. I think there's a huge amount of potential in PickFu, and the reason why is because, it's just like any industry. There's a way that technology can help move things drastically forward, and so bringing market research is something that's been around for the longest amount of time. Uh, and there's a huge amount of money that's being spent on market research. The problem is these bigger market research companies are very, very clunky. And so when Nike or when Under Armour, when they launch a product, they're spending 75 grand US or more per product just in customer feedback. And so, but these companies that are doing customer research, it's very clunky. It's like they're still doing things in a very old way. You have to sign huge contracts to do these market research. And so I think on the big end, there's a huge incentive for these companies that are becoming smaller and more agile to be able to do market testing in a fast way. And so the long-term vision, and this sounds really, really aspirational, is I want to grow PickFu to the point where we're replacing a lot, or we're actually using technology in a way to give, whether we already have huge clients like big multinational brands that are using PickFu, but not only to have the bigger clients kind of switch from these outdated market research methods. Like, why would you actually need to go and have a physical focus group anymore when you can do the same kind of thing over Zoom?
Yeah.
Right. And so those are like long-term goals. But in the immediate future, my goal is for every product that is launched in e-commerce to have them use PickFu at some point in their validation, whether it's on their packaging, whether it's in their images. Just use one point of data. Like, what I say is, like, every creative asset, every major creative change that you want to make in your business, just run like at least one PickFu test. And that's my real goal for the future, is growing it to that level, hopefully in the next 5 years.
That's awesome. What's your why?
For me, it's a good question. It's something I think about a lot. For me, originally, my why was, I remember I was working for Amazon. I was traveling back. I had just taken a trip to Egypt. I was traveling back from a flight from Bali, and I was realizing, oh my gosh, I don't have any more vacation days, and I'm gonna have to wait another 6 months before I'm able to take another trip. So originally my why was like, I want to be able to live anywhere in the world, and I want to be able to work remote, and I want to be able to travel and see the world. And so now that I've accomplished that, I can live anywhere. And so I remember thinking originally, man, if I could just make $2,000 a month US, I could travel full time nonstop. And so that was such a big goal at one point. And then once you get to that, you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't so hard to do. And so now my big why is I really want to try to grow this company PickFu. And I think a lot of it is, the reason why is I just want to see how big of an impact I can make in this company. And I guess really what it is to just to see what I can do, like to push my own personal limits and bounds. I don't know if PickFu is going to be the thing for me. I think it's going to turn into a very, very big company. I think I'm always, just by the nature of it, because I wasn't an initial founder of the company. I'm never going to own like a huge, massive stake in the company. And so PickFu is going to be, I think, one of those things on my resume that if it goes very, very well, that I'll be like, yeah, I was a part of that and I played a big role in it, but it won't ever be mine. And so what I really want to do after this is, and I have some other ventures on the side that I'm working on. My goal is really to be a business owner. And so what I've always thought is, like, I thought that there's a certain level of income that I'm going to be okay with. But what I really, really want to do is I want to build businesses where I have control and I can really treat the employees at what I would call would just be like, I don't know, like a hyper aggressive approach to employee morale. And so my dream has always been like, once I get to the point where I have enough money, like I would think about like creating businesses where I don't even take money from the business, that it all goes back to the employee just for the sake of building businesses, because businesses are fun. And it's not even, I think a lot of business people would look at me and say, okay, well, this isn't logical or this doesn't make sense, but there's a lot of things I'm passionate about. And so like, I want to have a hotel one day. I want to have like all of these different, like a small boutique hotel, but I want to have all of these different businesses, like a restaurant. And I don't care about it from the profitability standpoint. I just want to have those experiences and go to different places around the world and say, this is my thing. And these are the employees. Cause I think like, I think about like if the world would ever get to a bad place, or if I would ever need something, I would want to be able to fall back to my employees and know that I had treated them so well that like they have my back and they would be there for me because, I had paid it forward in the end.
You mentioned having a hotel. Where would you open your hotel if you could do it tomorrow?
Oh, I've already got a place in mind. There's a place in the Philippines, on the beach in Porto Galera, and it's a really interesting place. It's actually owned by a French guy, and he was a geologist, and he traveled all around the world as a geologist. And so he brought back to this house that he built. He built it pretty much by hand with the help of workers. Uh, it's like full of artifacts from around the world. There's like little towers. It's like a little castle. It's maybe 13 bedrooms, and I've stayed there a couple times. It's nothing like crazy fancy, but it's got like a mosaic pool. There's like mosaic tiles everywhere in these towers, and so yeah, he doesn't know this yet, but my long-term goal is I want to get to know him very well and say, hey, when you pass away, I want to make sure that all the artifacts and the history of this place is maintained, and that people know like what are the story, because every room you go into the house, there's these things and there's a story behind everything that's there. And I'm a very trippy person, like I really am a big fan of psychedelics and different things like that. And like this place is designed for you to go with like a group of friends and you just like do some mushrooms and you're just like everything looks like bizarre and weird, and it's very, very cool. Like the place is it's just a visual spectacle, and it's beautiful. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow, that's so many things. So you mentioned psychedelics. Have you tried
So
DMT?
like that, for example, that's a business that like it's never going to make $1 million. It's going to be purely to be like, I
Like,
want this. I've always had the thought with business that it's not about making the most money. It's about being the best at something, or something that's memorable, or you're really going to make like people. It won't ever be like a multi-million-dollar hotel, but people will know like, oh, I've heard of that place, and that's that crazy place in Porto Galera, and it's like that's what I want. I want that legacy.
it's about, oh, that's gonna be we're gonna talk about it in a moment. But you mentioned something that really caught my attention. You said you're doing psychedelics. So not gonna turn like a Joe Rogan on you, but do you do DMT and ayahuasca? That's something I've been.
I've never done that. I've never had like the chance or the opportunity to do that. I've done a lot of psychedelics. I've done a lot of LSD. I've done a lot of mushrooms. Pretty much everything. I've done it a bunch of times, and I mean, I'm not going to be like a huge advocate. I don't think it's for everyone, but if it's something, the people who know, and I think it's dramatically changed my perspective on the way that the world works. And even a lot of my ideas on business, I think some of the most simplistic ideas, like how do you grow a business? It's by effectively using the human resources underneath you to, like, you as an individual can only do so much, but the people who are most successful in business, it's very simple. All they're doing is they're using human resources underneath them in a much more effective way than they could be productive by themselves, right? Like inspiring a group of people to be way more productive as a group than as individuals. You have these ideas, and it becomes solidified in your head that like this is the way to grow a business. It's like these simple truths about life, I think, become much more evident for some people on psychedelics. So some very aha and epiphany moments.
Did you have any special experiences with some higher dimensions, other entities, or anything while doing that?
I don't know. I think that it's, for me personally, I think it's impossible to think. I don't personally believe that it's as simple as like there's two atoms that just kind of exploded and we're here. I think that might be the methodology for how we are here, but to think that that is the be all and end all and we're just here by chance, I don't personally believe that. I think there is something much larger. Maybe that makes me like a magical thinker or whatnot, but like it seems that things in this world have been created in a very intentional way. And if I've seen anything in the way that the world works, is like things don't just happen, things are created to be that way. Is there a God? I would very much doubt if there's not. I think it's very ignorant for us to think that there is not, and there's someone that we're going to answer to one day. I think it's probably a much more loving being and a much more accepting being than maybe religion lays out for us. But there's something else bigger than us out there. It's not just like we're floating through space randomly.
But we're definitely not the only beings around in this universe. That's something that I strongly believe, especially the more I get to study about that, because it's impossible, at least from my perspective, you know.
I agree. Yeah.
So now let's come back to business. We can talk about that for a long time, but business. So if you look at the experience you had with successfully building Virtuous Graphics, now with your involvement with PickFu, let's say tomorrow you had a unique opportunity to start your own business from scratch with a slate of paper, and you could do it exactly the way you want, the perfect business. How would you do things differently from what you did with Virtuous Graphics? I mean, take into consideration everything you learned from there and what you're doing now with PickFu, and how would you make them even better? What would you change? What would you do differently? And what would you keep? I know it's a pretty big
Yeah.
question, but just want to hear your thoughts on that. What would you
Yeah. Well,
basically?
yeah, well, I'd say the cool thing is it's not as much of a hypothetical. It's somewhat true in certain ways. I'm not actively involved in the business like day to day, but I am an advisor to another agency, uh, and I will say it's still in the e-commerce space, and it's actually been super cool. My business partner, he's a Canadian guy who lives in Thailand. We had a long relationship for about a year before we became business partners, and so it's actually the coolest thing in the world is to get to help out in another business in a very similar thing to what Virtuous Graphics was, because it's so interesting to see certain times where he's a little bit nervous and anxious about things, and I'm like, it's like I feel like I'm Eric in the position he was in, where I was freaking out and he was saying, "Hey, dude, just everything's gonna be fine. Like, don't worry." And so having a little bit of maturity to see things longer term. The biggest changes I've made have just been in regards to slowing down and respecting the process of how long things take. And so when I first started at Virtuous Graphics, I just wanted to go guns blazing, changes, and do everything as fast as possible. Let's grow sales. Let's just make as much money as quick as possible. And now I'm much more reserved. I realize that reputation in a service business is the most important thing, and you can build a reputation over years and you can lose it in 5 minutes. And so making sure in a service-based business that before we grow sales, before we ever tell a customer that we can do something, making sure that every single time, 100% of the time, we will over deliver and they're going to have nothing but the most positive things to say about the business. As well too, certain things with managing the employees. Before, I don't think I had really, I guess maybe the intestinal fortitude or just the gut to just be sometimes make the hard decisions in business, like leaving people around that didn't have a spot on the team. Now I'm much better at just making those hard decisions, because I've seen that if you let those people linger in your organization, like you can give people that final chance and say, "Hey, you're this close to losing the job," but give them that last chance. But if they don't actually do what they need to do, it's better for the entire organization, I realize, is to just cut those people out of your organization and only allow people that really want to be there to be there.
Sure. Um, the theme of this podcast is leaders with a heart, meaning people are building businesses that are actually doing that have a purpose, a mission, and a goal in making an impact on others. And I noticed you mentioned I mean, more than a couple of times that you actually, you know, you love the impact you're making on your employees. That's something that can really resonate with. So tell us more about what cause you're currently very passionate about, and just tell us about that.
Yeah, so I guess like in terms of causes, PickFu, we're really involved with some different programs. When COVID started, we had specific programs that we really try to focus on and try to give back. We had a COVID grant program. So when this whole thing started, if your business was affected by COVID, we gave away $20,000 in grants to different businesses that were optimizing their businesses, that were going through changes so that they could make changes and run their businesses better. We support a lot of social programs as well. So real big in Asian heritage and Black Lives Matter, different things like that. And then, but for me personally, I think it's always really, I guess as a company as well, we really focus and prioritize the well-being of the employees. So we've always been a remote company. We really prioritize all the time. Make sure that you don't treat work as your number one priority. Work is important, But at the end of the day, family is important. Making sure that you're staying healthy and that your mental health is in a good spot is important, like not getting burnt out. And so we don't just say that, we really do mean it. We really do live by it. You know, one of my employees at PickFu right now, she just gave birth, and we're so
Wow.
excited. And you know, for the past couple of weeks, like she's at home and it's no pressure. You know, get back whenever you can get back. There's no rush. Everything's going to be waiting. Realizing that at the end of the day, businesses are just, it's just something that we're doing, and for most of us, it's just something that we're doing for fun. And that if the money wasn't involved, we would still probably go do this just because that's the crazy people that we are. We just really enjoy the challenge and the fun experience of running a business, and so that's really big. And yeah, I mean, like longer term passionate. I'm just really passionate long term about making, you know, the thing that was always appealing to me about having employees, and what Eric told me originally is like, if you really want to start taking your business seriously, what you should do is you should hire employees, because you won't sleep at night. If the business isn't making money, you will work until you make sure that you can make payroll, to make sure that these people are relying on you. You can't let them down. And that's something that's really important. Even if you don't take a paycheck, even if you don't eat, you'll make sure that your employees get everything that they need. And so, like, that's what I'm really big on. I've been able to see multiple times over the course of my life how people's lives have been changed by the jobs that I've given them. And being a job creator, I think, is one of the coolest things. It's just cool to also be able to grow with people and see their families grow and see their life situation grow, and you know, them move from living at home to moving into their own apartment to having a higher standard of life. And you know, people can say whatever they want about capitalism, but you know, it's dramatically impactful on people's lives, and there's no way around that.
No, for sure. I'm also on the same page as you. And one thing you mentioned also is that you know, it's all about treating your employee right. It's and one of the things challenges most businesses have is employee loyalty. And one of the, it's not just a matter of just paying them better or whatever. It's by treating them better. Just like you mentioned, one of your employees right now is has just gave birth, and just you told them, listen, no rush. Do you can come back whenever you want. That alone is gonna make that person, as far as I can see, so much more loyal to you and your company, that and she will work that much harder because you believed in her, you treated her as a human being and not just like a number on a spreadsheet. And just because of that, that creates an incredible environment within the employee, within the work. So that's amazing. I love that. That's something that I'm also very passionate about. And just like you said, uh, you know, a lot of people have a bad, you know, bad idea about capitalism, but capitalism can also do a lot of good. You know, I have a firm belief that it's our responsibility, us as entrepreneurs, to do good. Not only it's not the government's responsibility, you know, because doing good is actually very good for business. Not only it's the right thing to do as human being, but also is good for business, because people, just like you've been telling a few times during this call, is that people love to do business with people they love and trust and respect. And if someone has a choice between doing business with two companies, one that is purely profit driven and one that is actually cost driven, 99%, 100% of time, they will choose the one that is more cost driven, you know. So that's something I've noticed, and I'm applying that as well myself, and I'm very passionate about. That's why I created this podcast. I see it more than a podcast. I see it as a movement to bring together other ethical entrepreneurs to build a community, but also to inspire other entrepreneurs to do good. Because if each of us can start doing good, and we help other people and have an impact, and then they went on and do it the same to other people and businesses, before long, this world would be a different world. It would be much more, you know, positive vibe everywhere. And that's one thing that this world right now needs more than ever, is more positivity, more helping others, especially those in need, because it's unfortunately a lot of negativity going around right now. And that's why, as I said, capitalism can be bad. I see capitalism as a gun, or as a set of car keys. They can be used for bad, but they can also be used to do tremendous good.
Right.
That's how I see it. So I like to call that, you know, I see myself as a progressive capitalist, someone that actually, you know, uses money to do good, to have an impact. You know, speaking of
Absolutely. Yeah.
speaking of impact, what impact do you wanna live? How do you wanna be remembered?
I don't know. I think that's probably, I haven't quite decided that yet. But what I've always been really, really interested in doing is having a wide range of businesses all around the world that probably do a lot of different things, and that each of those businesses has an amazing culture where the people who are working there really love their job, but their job isn't their number one priority, and that I think work is an important component of life. Whereas I think like most people probably wouldn't be satisfied just, you can't relax all the time. You want to have something, some kind of purpose. And so even if that is what would seem like a trivial business, that the employees are really engaged and invested in it. There's a really good quote by Alan Watts, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it kind of centers around the idea that the real secret to life is working on whatever you're working on, that you're so engaged and you're so into what you're doing, that the difference between work and play, there is no difference, right? You really, really are focused into what you're doing. And so to build companies, even if they're trivial seeming businesses, that not just myself, I already feel like I have that I wake up, and the vast majority of the work that I do, I really enjoy doing. But that for my employees as well, that we create a world in which they don't hate their lives every day. They're not going and dreading going to work on Monday, that they really do enjoy it, that this is something that they're proud and happy to go to, and to do that as many times for as many people as I possibly can. And then, hopefully maybe change some lives for the better in the end. Yeah.
All about the impact, yeah, for sure. Um, I was listening this morning, a video by Gary Vee, which was someone asked him, "What is the first thing you do in the morning when you wake up?" Like, for example, for me, the first thing I do is I count I do my workout, which is basically push-ups. And he said, first thing I do is I count my blessings, which is so true, because that puts you in a grateful mindset. And when you're in a grateful mindset, you cannot be sad, you cannot be pissed off, and that right off the bat puts you on the right path for the rest of the day. What about you, Anthony? What do you do? What is the first thing you do in the morning? And do you have a morning routine when you wake up?
But, I probably got to get better with my morning routine. If I'm going to be completely honest, I don't think I have one. I think I hear a lot of really good things about it. I'm kind of a night owl, and then when I wake up, it's usually, especially in the past couple of years, it's like talking with people all over from the world, and so it's kind of just a crazy sleep schedule. I think if I have had times in my life where I've gotten to that regular sleep schedule and I've gotten to bed on the right time, and then waking up the same time every day. But I think I probably need to fix my sleep schedule before I can get some routine in my life. But I'll maybe check back in at another time, and I'll have a better answer there.
I have the same challenges. Yeah. Um, let's see. Okay. If you were to go back, let's say you're going back, you have the opportunity to time travel and talk to Anthony when you were 18. What would be the one piece of advice you would give yourself?
you know, I think probably is just, I probably knew this deep down, but just really be aggressive with taking risks and kind of seeking that uncomfortability of just not knowing what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Like the biggest thing that I realized when I started traveling is like, you go to these developing countries, you spend time there, and you realize, man, the worst thing that's ever going to happen is I'm going to have to go back, live in my parents' basement. Like if you grow up in America, it's like, man, you're already starting off so far beyond the rest of the world, just in terms of privilege and advantage. And so, I mean, you just don't have anything to lose, right? Like you really don't have anything to lose. And if I would give advice to a younger version of myself, it would be just, even more experience. Like if I would have realized, and I did realize this pretty early, that I could just like go, and this is how I got my job at the Points Guy. This is how I pretty much got all my early experiences. Like I just went to people and said, I'll work for you for free. I just want to learn. But if I would have realized that I could have like used my age, even at a younger age, to like be more aggressive in the type of companies that I work for, that I could have like, worked for even bigger people or bigger organizations and moved up faster, I probably would have done that. I think I had a pretty good progression through life, but like, yeah, if you're 18 there right now and you're like, hey, I'm thinking about going to college, I'm thinking like, don't do that. Just like, what are you most passionate about? And just, you're like, hey, I want to go and travel the world. Like go and find something that's going to allow you to do it and make as little money as you possibly can, but just like go and pledge your services to someone else and like be their apprentice. And there's a lot of people, if you're hungry, that will actually take you up on that offer, and it'll end up leading to the best possible route. Is just pick that one thing that you think you're passionate about, go and work on it the hardest you possibly can, get as much experience. And then if it turns out that that's not what you like, enjoy doing, then you'll just switch to something else, you know, and don't be afraid of wasting that time because you're still so young, you know?
What are your awesome? What are your thoughts on college? Do you think it's worth it, or do you think it's a scam?
I went to college and I think that college is fantastic, but not for the reasons people think it is, not for career development. And so I had a lot of fun in college. I made some very good connections in college. But in terms of like education, I don't think it's good. I think for certain careers, it's necessary. So if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be an engineer, if you know deep down, I would encourage you to really ask yourself. I thought I wanted to be a doctor when I went to college, and now I think back to me being a doctor, and that would have never happened. But you have an idea of what this career is. What I encourage everyone to do is to, if you think you want to be an engineer, and before you go to college, go and talk to a bunch of people, shadow some engineers, see what their life is really like.
Mhm.
Not the glamorous side, but like what's their life like every day, and would they recommend it? Would they recommend it now before you want to go be a doctor, before you want to go be a lawyer? And just really investigate. The other thing I'll say is like anyone who's going to college now, I think there's just much cheaper alternatives. So in total, and I'm paying for this myself, I spent $100,000 in total to go to college between tuition, between all my expenses while I was there. And I didn't know at the time, I just took out loans and I'm paying for all those myself. My parents aren't paying for those. And so that now it's like with the way that education is going, there's over time, it's more and more options to get that same education cheaper, and people will not care if it came from an online university. It's not going to matter because it's the same information. And
Yeah,
so if you're really even focused on getting that piece of paper, do it in the lowest cost way possible, because like if you can go right now and you can do this, and I've taken some of the classes, you can go and like take courses, Harvard online, and like literally Ivy League schools for a fraction of what I paid. That's going to be more and more prevalent. Big companies like Google and Facebook, they already don't care necessarily if you've graduated from college. And so don't go and put yourself into a financial hole just because you think, I mean, it will be outdated in a few years, and there's no question in anyone's mind. You will still have to do some kind of certification and training, but if you're going to go and spend like even $20,000, I think is probably way, way, way too much.
I agree. I have something similar, the same mindset. A few years ago, I had one of my cousins. He was about to graduate from high school, and he asked me, what do I want to do?" I said, "What do you love doing?" And I said, "Listen, the only time for you that college would make sense if you, as you said, if you're keen on doing something that you know you will need accreditation, like finance, law, medicine, things like that, that you actually need some certificates. Yes, but if you're not sure, forget that. Don't waste your time. Either if you're if if you're more hands-on, which he was, because I had worked in the oil fields, working in a blue-collar environment before going to China. I said, listen, in that case, why don't you get into some kind of blue-collar thing that you like? So he went. Long story short, he took welding. Now the guy is 22. He's only making six figures. Well, because he did some. He was smart. That's probably the best movie he made. And for other people that are not sure, for example, what I would recommend is that they're not keen on becoming a lawyer, doctor, something need this occupation. Take a fraction of that, say $10,000, go travel when the world opens up, start your own business, start an e-commerce, learn a high income skill, whatever it is, whatever you're passionate about, whether it's copywriting, selling online, something that's, you're going to have an amazing experience, much more than any college could teach you. But also by the time you come back, you will have learned, especially if you started your own business selling online or whatever, you know freelancing or whatever, you will learn so much more skills that if you that if you ever really after that want to come back to get a job, employers would be absolutely blown away by that. You will have so much more, so much more attractive than someone that just went the traditional way, college and all that, and not actual experience. So that would be my advice. I agree with that as well. And what are your thoughts on college students? I mean, high school kids to go traveling and start their own business for this versus straight going into college.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing I would say is like, I think where I made the biggest mistake is that, you know, they say for guys, the human brain doesn't finish developing until 25. And I think I probably took all 25 of those years, like maybe even a little bit longer. And so the thing is, I think when I went to college, going from a small town to a big school like the University of Florida, I just completely honest, I didn't have the discipline to go to college, to go to class, to do these things. And so I don't think we should really beat kids up for being in that scenario. And in fact, now when I look at it, I think I actually have thought about this, that there's a good chance that in my life, I actually could go back to college, and I might actually go back and learn engineering or go back and do law, something that's a more technical professional skill. But the difference is now I actually have the concept and the idea of the reason why I want to do it, the specific things I want to learn, and how I would actually use that in the future. And so I think that going and traveling, getting any kind of experience is a fantastic idea. Um, Going and surviving in the real world, getting an idea for things you like and don't like. And back in the day, I think there was this whole notion that you couldn't, like, if you didn't go to college early on, that you would get sucked into the workforce and you would never go back. And that's just not the reality now. And so I think we probably shouldn't be pushing people into college early. I think that getting some real world experience, seeing other cultures, getting an idea for that the world is an international place is a hugely beneficial thing, because you can always go back to college, you know, when you're full, when you're ready, when you're disciplined, and as well too, get a concept for how money works. Because when I got out of high school, I'd had jobs, and I had like pretty good paying jobs for a high schooler, and I had a little bit of money, but it never prepared me for, like, okay, you're out there in the world. And I just thought, okay, well, I'm just taking out student loans. I'm living a life that I wasn't really paying for. I didn't have any concept for money. And so my whole relationship with money early on in my life was completely messed up. Versus when you actually go out and I think it's so important to, like, even if your parents do give you money to go and do these things, try to, as much as possible, be as independent, try to survive just based on what you're able to earn, and really get a feel for, like, if I don't have money to buy, I'm not going to be able to buy it, or I'm not going to afford it, or I'm going to have to eat ramen until I get my next paycheck. Right. And that's such an important thing to have, because once you figure that out, if everything has just been given to you and you're spending money that you don't have, it's just going to set you up for failure later in life. And so go out, live like a real person in the world, try to survive independently of your parents, and you're going to be in a much, much better
Yeah,
spot
I,
longer down the road.
I think a lot needs to be changed, especially going to college at 18 is completely, in my opinion, wrong. It's not the right time. People are not equipped and not mature enough to know what they want to do. You know, a lot of people, and I'm sure you've done that as well. I've changed three times my major when I was in university because I had no idea, you know.
Right.
And that's going to do is going to keep on, you know, accruing more debt for you, and you will waste more time as opposed to get some working experience, some real life experience, go get some work, some internship or whatever, go travel, start a business. And by the time you're 25, 26, you have actual real life experiences, and you will have a better idea of what you want to do. And once you do actually go to college, you will have the work ethic, the motivation, the drive to actually make the most of it, as opposed to just going at 18 and just being thrown in the machine and just, you know, it's going to be a mess. And I think that we need to really look at the mirror. I mean, by we, I mean our entire education system in the Western world, to really revamp that, because sending kids at 18 to college, we have to ask ourselves, is that really the best time of the best use of your time? And the answer, from my experience, your experience, and millions of other kids, no. The answer is a big fat no. You know, they don't prepare us for what's coming next. So yeah, man, that's awesome. We agree on that. Now let me ask you another question. It's very fun. Let's say you were able to interview yourself right now. What would be the first question you would ask yourself?
I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I've done a lot of interviews too, and like I've been on the other side of the interview. I mean, I always like to ask kind of how you started the interview. I do the same thing as kind of tell me who you are as an individual. I like to get to know the person, like who is Anthony Cofrancesco. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. You're putting me on the spot. I don't know if I have a good answer there.
Okay, no worries. All right. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you, Anthony?
Yeah, they can hit me up, Anthony at PickFu.com. And, feel free. They can find me on Instagram at Anthony Cofran. Just however they want to contact me. I'm pretty active in different places. I might take like a week to respond. Sometimes I'm, all over the place, and I'm not the best at responding to things, but I will respond eventually.
That's cool. Okay. Do you have any parting tips for anyone that's looking to start a business, or even looking to get, you know, start their own team in the Philippines or anything like that, or any parting tips you have to someone?
Absolutely. And I think it goes with the theme of the podcast, is that if you're planning on getting into business and you're an asshole, just stay out. Just do us all a favor.
Exactly.
I think it's like the world is very clearly moving in a direction where we're becoming more loving, more accepting, we're becoming more ethical. And so if your primary reason to get into business is just for making money, and I've worked with these people, just don't, just like do a job, do work inside of an organization, but don't try to become a leader in an organization if your goal isn't to try to help other people and to try to actually make other people's lives better. If it's just about the money for you, just do us all a favor, just because it's like the world doesn't need any more of those people. We've had a long history of like, we know what happens when it's like all you're doing is serving money. And like the other big tip is like, you'll see this when you travel internationally. Like, I'm here in Brazil right now, and the amount of money I make, like, I'm like, I would be very, very rich and wealthy in this country. And it has nothing to do with anything about me. It's just based on where I was born and how I'm able to earn money in more developed countries. And so when you realize that like you could go to any place in the world and be very, very wealthy just by moving there, you realize that money is inherently it's completely irrelevant, right? And if I were to go to places in Scandinavian countries, I wouldn't even be doing well, right? And so money is completely relative to the spot that you're in. And when you realize, and I know very many people that are very, very wealthy, that there's always just going to be another hoop to jump through, another level to get to, another level to get through. And so having money is definitely great, and you can have yourself a very good standard of life. But if your only primary goal is money, you will not be happy in life. No one ever has been. You have to have something more that you're looking to do. And so really think about what your why is, and realize that your why is going to be your why at one point in time, and it's likely going to change many, many times. And stay true to yourself, and make sure you're chasing the right why.
Perfectly said. That's very wise words. I couldn't have. That's a perfect way to end this. Thank you very much, Anthony. You've proven time and time again during this conversation that you're indeed not only a super smart guy, but also more importantly, a leader with a heart. Thank you with that, brother. God bless you. Stay safe, and we'll keep in touch. And hopefully, we can meet again in the next few months in this beautiful world somewhere. Thank you, brother.
See you
Take care.
soon.
Ciao.
Thanks.